The camera recorded the whole thing. 3 young men chasing, attacking decisively, without warning. In broad daylight in the middle of a residential area, a man collapsed without understanding why he was chosen. Was it revenge? Was it impulsiveness? Or was it a predatory killing? This was more than just a knife crime. This was a chilling warning about gang violence creeping across Britain. Why did they attack so viciously? This was a case that sent shivers down the spines of the entire country. Kieran Shepherd lived a quiet life in Great Battle, a gentrified neighborhood on the edge of Chelmsford, Essex. He was 30 years old, unassuming with no criminal record. Neighbors described him as a kind, quiet man, often seen walking along the paved walkways under the trees in the morning or early afternoon with his dog. He lived alone. He spoke little, but was a regular presence in the neighborhood, and so was known. That day, October 15, 2024, the atmosphere was as usual. No rain, no wind. A calm Tuesday afternoon, clear and calm on Megate Avenue. The trees were shedding their leaves. The traffic was light. The scene was not unusual. On the other side of town, 3 young men, Joseph Dorr, along with Zach O'Keefe and Harrison Carpenter, were also on the move. They were all in their 20s, known to be close friends, often seen together. The 3 grew up around Chelmsford and Stock. They were known to their acquaintances as the 3 Musketeers, a nickname they adopted. Although none of them had a serious criminal record, they had appeared in several viral videos on social media, posing as roughnecks, loudmouths, and dramatic characters. At around 12:20 p.m. that day, the road Shepherd had known would become the last place he would be seen alive. No one could have predicted that just minutes later, those peaceful steps would be interrupted by a series of violent and irreversible acts. And that's when things began to take a turn. Around 12:21 p.m., October 15, 2024, 3 young men, Joseph Dorr, Zach O'Keefe, and Harrison Carpenter, enter a small convenience store on the main road leading to Megate Avenue. No one seems in a hurry. No behavior that would alert the clerk. A brief, seemingly meaningless stop. Outside, the sun still shines evenly on the sidewalks around the residential area. The air is calm. No arguing, no shouting. Everything is quiet to the point of being cold. In the next frame, near the corner, a man appears. It is Kieran Shepherd. He is walking slowly down the sidewalk a few hundred meters away from the other group. There is no encounter, no argument, just 2 parallel movements on the same street. In a few minutes, that short stretch of road will become the focus of a murder in broad daylight. That afternoon, Kieran Shepherd was walking his dog on Megate Avenue. The street was empty. No cars, no one but him. The surroundings were as usual, but in an instant, the silence was broken. 3 young men appeared behind him. Joseph Dorr, Zach O'Keefe, and Harrison Carpenter. Security cameras recorded the group accelerating, changing from a walk to a run. There was no warning, no call, no threat, just quick footsteps following each other on the empty pavement. Shepherd began to run. It was unclear whether he had heard something or simply sensed danger. He crossed the road, but before he could get very far, he slipped and fell flat on his face. As he struggled to stand, one of the 3 men identified as O'Keefe approached him. He had a knife in his hand. Without saying anything, he struck. The first blow came from behind. A second later, another stab. Kieran collapsed on the spot. The chase from start to finish took less than 10 seconds. No one had time to intervene. There was no reaction from the outside. After the stab, the 3 immediately fled the scene. Midgate Avenue returned to silence, but this time it was no longer the same peace as before. There was only a body lying motionless in the middle of the road, and a dog still standing there not leaving. Minutes after the attack, the street was quiet again. No sirens, no screaming, but in a deserted corner of Midgate Avenue, Kieran Shepherd lay motionless in the middle of the paved footpath. A woman who was cleaning up the neighborhood happened to pass by. She had no idea what had happened. There was no sign of a chase or a fight. But as she got closer, she could see the body of a man lying face down, motionless with a dog standing by, unmoving. The moment of realization was instantaneous. The woman pulled out her phone and dialed 9. The time of recording was around 12:30. Her voice was urgent, trying to keep calm as she described the scene before her. That call marked the start of the emergency response by the authorities, and from that moment on, a murder in broad daylight in a seemingly peaceful residential area quickly turned into a large-scale investigation. Essex Police's rapid response units were dispatched to Megate Avenue immediately after the call. An ambulance arrived almost simultaneously. The normally quiet residential area was now filled with flashing lights, hurried footsteps, and brief radio conversations. The police arrived within minutes. They quickly set up a cordon. People began to gather, keeping their distance as instructed. There was no shouting, no chaos, but the silence now had a different weight. It was the silence of shock, of wordless horror. Medical staff approached the victim, made initial assessments, but there was no hope. Kieran Shepherd was dead at the scene. The official time of death was 13:22. He was lying on his side near the edge of the road. No movement, no response. The dog was still hovering nearby, not barking, just watching silently. The police found no weapons at the scene. There were no immediate witnesses. There was only the woman who had called an ambulance, and a few nearby residents who had just come out when they saw the police. Everyone was silent. The first question on their minds was, "What just happened and why are you here?" From this point on, Essex Police would move from initial response to formal investigation. Every trace, every image would become an important piece of the puzzle to unravel what led to the death of a man who had just turned 30. At the scene, the investigating officers and the forensic team began the process of collecting evidence. The area around where Kieran Shepherd fell was marked with yellow cones. In the fading afternoon light, every little detail was meticulously recorded. The victim's body was left in place for initial forensic work. Through on-site examination, experts confirmed 2 stab wounds from behind. One of them penetrated straight into the left chest, causing serious damage. The other wound was almost parallel, going up and down below the shoulder blade. Preliminary reports showed that the depth of each wound was between 13 and 15, consistent with a sharp medium-sized knife capable of causing death within minutes, if not treated promptly. There were no signs of a struggle at the scene. No murder weapon was found at the scene. There was only blood, a short streak on the road, and a few smaller drops on the grassy edge. The question now becomes who was holding the knife and what happened after the suspects left the scene. Once the scene was sealed off, and the victim was officially confirmed dead, Essex Police investigators began to widen their search. The initial focus was on identifying the people involved, but there were no eyewitnesses to the incident at the time. Any clues had to start with surveillance equipment, and thankfully, Midgate Avenue has a high density of security cameras. From the CCTV system installed along major routes, the police were able to trace a clear sequence of movements. At 12:20, 3 young men were filmed outside a convenience store. The group appeared normal without masks or covering their faces. Everything seemed natural, but just 3 minutes later, cameras at a junction near Midgate Avenue showed them running in the direction of Kieran Shepherd. The moment of the chase, which took place at 12:24 p.m., was captured very clearly. All 3 men were clearly identifiable. One even pulled something from his belt as he ran, a detail that was confirmed to be a weapon. From the crime scene, the next camera recorded the group moving out of the residential area, turning onto a side street. They disappeared from view less than 5 minutes later. No one was close enough to hear or see the whole thing, but the camera was indisputable evidence. The police did not stop there. They continued to trace camera lines, including private security systems from residential homes, and public CCTV from bus stops and street corners. This led them to an address in Stock, where Harrison Carpenter's grandmother lived. Here at around 1:10, a camera outside a house recorded 3 young men approaching, one apparently gasping for breath, the other bending down to check the bottom of his trousers. This was the last time they were seen together in their original clothing. Police arrived at the address within hours of analyzing the data, but the group had left. Through conversations with family members, Officers were led to a key figure, Carpenter's girlfriend. The girl, who was not initially considered a suspect, provided testimony that would prove to be a turning point in the investigation. She recounted that afternoon Carpenter, O'Keefe, and Dorr had met at a mutual friend's house. There, she said, the group sat quietly for a while and then started talking about burning clothes. When asked why, Carpenter replied, "We can't leave anything behind." She also confirmed that she had seen a sheathed knife in O'Keefe's hand that same afternoon. When asked what had happened, no one in the group could give a clear answer. Only one sentence from O'Keefe stood out to her: "We had to do it. There was no way back." Based on that account, police examined phone records, GPS signals, and CCTV footage from the area. They found that the group had traveled north to Clacton-on-Sea, a coastal town more than 35 miles from the scene. There they are believed to have stayed in a caravan for several hours before leaving the area. CCTV from Clacton-on-Sea took longer to collect, but cameras from a local petrol station and shop confirmed that the three had been there that same day in the late afternoon. A shop assistant recalled seeing them buying water and tissues, looking tired and avoiding eye contact. Based on the entire route, images, statements, and timing, Essex police were able to identify the three as Joseph Doe, Zach O'Keefe, and Harrison Carpenter, and locate the three main suspects. From a case with no direct witnesses, the investigation now had a map of their movements, circumstantial evidence, and solid video evidence. But to arrest the three, the police needed to act quickly. No one knew how long the group would stay or whether they intended to remain on the run. The decision was made to mount a manhunt less than 24 hours after the murder. Essex police had located the three suspects' temporary residence. Using CCTV footage along the escape route, GPS data, and witness statements, the team narrowed the search down to the coast at a caravan park near Clacton-on-Sea. A specialist task force was sent out in the early hours of the 16th of October to work with local authorities. The caravan was identified as the last stop on the suspect's route after the murder. Police approached the area quietly, setting up a perimeter around all entrances and exits before knocking on the door. All three men, Joseph Dorr, Zach O'Keefe, and Harrison Carpenter, were inside. They did not attempt to flee. There was no resistance. The arrest was quick, neat, and without the use of force. But during a search of the surrounding area, police discovered many signs that the group had deliberately changed clothes, moved some items, and erased traces. Garbage bags were tied tightly. Some items were burned in the open burning area. No weapons were recovered at the scene of the arrest, but the investigation team promptly sealed off the entire area to serve the task of tracing additional evidence. Immediately after being arrested, all three were escorted to the police station in Chelmsford to begin the formal interrogation process. In the interrogation room, Zach O'Keefe was the first to speak. In his official testimony, he admitted that he was the one who wielded the knife during the incident. However, O'Keefe insisted that his actions were in self-defense. He said that Kieran Shepherd had previously had conflicts with him, even threatened him with violence, and owned a vicious dog. However, when asked if he had any specific evidence of being threatened, O'Keefe could not provide any documents or witnesses. Joseph Dorr and Harrison Carpenter, the other two, both denied directly causing the victims injuries. They said that they were only present at the scene and did not know in advance that O'Keefe would act like that. But with evidence from the camera, travel routes, and witness statements, all three were still charged under the joint enterprise doctrine, meaning that they were jointly responsible of the same act leading to serious consequences. All three defendants appeared calm, no panic, no unusual facial expressions or speech. The case was supported by a coherent, robust, and consistent chain of evidence. CCTV footage from the newsagent's route to the scene, and then to the stock address, provided clear footage of the movements of all three defendants. Each clip was time and location stamped and extracted as primary evidence. The recording of the 999 call from the cleaning lady was a key piece. The shaky voice describing the scene with details of a motionless man and a person nearby carrying a knife matched the CCTV footage. The testimony of Harrison Carpenter's girlfriend served as the backbone of the prosecution structure. She not only confirmed that the group had discussed burning the evidence, but also that she had seen a knife in the hands of one defendant after the incident. Based on all this data, the police reconstructed the entire chain of events from the first point of contact to the moment of leaving the scene. It was no longer speculation. The file is now a logical diagram weighty enough to bring all three men to trial in a criminal court. At Chelmsford Crown Court, the formal trial of Joseph Dorr, Zach O'Keefe, and Harrison Carpenter began in front of the victims' families, legal representatives, and local media. All three defendants were charged with murder, the most severe form of the British Criminal Code. The trial lasted several days, each closely coordinated and chaired by a senior judge. The 12-member jury heard the full presentations from the prosecution and defense, as well as being shown CCTV footage, crime scene photographs, and forensic charts. The arguments focused on the specific roles of each defendant, the degree of premeditation in their actions, and whether their actions were part of a planned attack. The defense argued for a lack of preparation, trying to dismiss the element of intent. Meanwhile, the prosecution has emphasized coordinated conduct, purposeful movement, and group action as the basis for the murder charge. As of August 2025, the trial has yet to conclude. A final verdict has not been announced. The defendants remain in custody pending a verdict. The victim's family sits silently in the front row, waiting for clear justice from the justice system. As the court prepares to wrap up its closing arguments, attention turns to the reaction of the public, who have been closely following the case from the sidelines. The frustration is not confined to the courtroom. It spills out into the corridors, into every social media post, every sidewalk conversation in Great Battle and Chelmsford, because people can't understand why, with all the evidence on the table from multiple cameras, a full timeline, clear witness statements to the flight and the eraser of evidence, a verdict has not yet been delivered. Patience with the justice system is starting to wear thin. Some say bluntly, if this case isn't enough to convict, what case is? It's not that the public wants a quick verdict, they want a fair verdict. But fair doesn't mean an indefinite wait. For the public, the delay is like a crack in the law's ability to protect. In Britain, the criminal justice system is built on the principle of absolute fairness. No conviction beyond a reasonable doubt, but when the images have recorded every step, when the confession has been read in court, when the evidence and the story match up minute by minute, the silence of the verdict is no longer felt as caution, but as an unanswered void. The victim's family waits. The people wait. And each day that passes without an end is the day that makes justice more distant in the eyes of those who believe in it. This case not only left a life lying on the side of the road, but also left a lingering question for the whole community. What drove three young men in broad daylight in a peaceful residential area to commit an irreversible act? All it took was one wrong decision in a few seconds, and all three of them pushed themselves into a dead end. There were no weapons of war. There was no grand conspiracy. Just a knife and an out-of-control group mentality. But the result was a life taken forever. Three young people